Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Destiny video. And today I want to talk about why I like Trilogies so much. So let's talk about it real quick. Trilogies is essentially the more limited format of Destiny, where you're just playing with the 3 newest sets, and right now, until today, basically, the 1 set Legacies. Now it'll be Legacies and Ways of the Force. What I've been enjoying so much about Trilogies, and to be honest, I haven't played that much. This is more of like a preliminary thought. I played a couple months ago with my friend John and I. We took a couple days and played and had a blast. I played in a Galactic Qualifier yesterday, had a blast. I went 6-0 with this deck that I'm showing you here. And what I like so much about the format is that it feels like what I wanted when I started playing Destiny, which was essentially a more robust, interesting version of chess. I make a move, you make a move. I look at the board, I look at the options, I can plan 3, 4, 5 moves ahead, because while there is some action cheating still, and like chaining specials and other elements, there isn't the excessive action cheating where sometimes it feels like there's not enough interactivity with something like a Sabine deck, where sometimes it just comes down to they rolled 3s and you went, oh, well, nice job. I had a plan, you had a plan, you executed your plan, better, rolled better, I lost. I don't feel like Trilogies comes down quite as much to it. It feels like there's more interactivity, the game is a little bit slower, so you have more options, more cards become playable. For instance, a card like Luke's Protection, which I ran as a 2 of yesterday, was really good and game-changing, whereas in constructed or standard play, it feels really slow. There's just not quite enough time. And it's one of the big differences in the format, that without such efficient decks and without all the most efficient weapons and the redundancy that you get in a standard deck, there's just more time to watch plans develop. There's more time to see the board and react. And this is how Awakenings was. Awakenings was the game I fell in love with, and then Spirit of Rebellion kind of took that game and kicked it a whole bunch of times, right? And it was like, you liked back and forth? No, the back and forth is gone. There is limited interactivity, and that was really frustrating. But with at least this version of Trilogies, with Legacies, which I think was a really well-designed set to be an independent set, I had a lot of fun with it. Every time I played Trilogies, I've really liked it. So I'm hoping that we see this get some more support. Now, I do want to throw in a couple caveats. It may be that Trilogies was so fun because it was 1 set. I don't know. Maybe with 2 sets, we're going to get back to this point where there's just enough redundancy of the most efficient stuff that it suddenly just turns into essentially the same thing as standard, only a little watered down. And I think that's not going to be very enjoyable at all. I don't think it's interesting to play a slightly worse version of standard. Like, to me, there's no point in that. What separates Trilogy so much now is that it really doesn't play like standard. Standard feels very much like, I have a plan, I am executing my plan, I'm executing it on my timetable, and hopefully I've examined the meta closely enough to know that my timetable will be fast enough or effective enough to deal with your timetable. In some ways, it feels a bit like Pokemon, the card game, which I tried briefly and quickly realized was not for me, because Pokemon, the card game, has sort of taken that model and pushed it as far as you can go. Yeah, sure, it's my action, your action, but on my turn, I can essentially take like 28 actions because there's so much action cheating that by the time I'm done with my 1 turn before it's your go, I've basically done everything I can do, and I'm basically playing a game of solitaire, and you're playing a game of solitaire, and there's still quite a bit of skill involved, but we're trying to figure out, like, whose game of solitaire is more effective, more efficient, and gets there faster, and matches up better against the other person's game of solitaire. And sometimes standard has felt like that. And so I'm wondering if Trilogies will feel like that as well as we move on. So that's one caveat. The other caveat is, not that many people take Trilogies ultra seriously. For example, you know, the Hyperloops is one of the most competitive venues you can go to for information. They're always on top of everything. I had this Galactic Qualifier. I was like, I'll check out their Trilogies tier list. And they had an obviously out-of-date tier list, right? Because they just don't take it seriously. This deck was on like the, I don't know, maybe it's good. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, Ayla's broken, Rayla's broken, and Standard. It's not like this is that much worse. What are you talking about? It might be good. It's obviously going to be good. The question is it like broken good? I still don't know the answer to that, obviously. But it's just interesting that, and I'm not calling out the Hyperloops here, to be clear. I'm just saying that so few people have put time into Trilogies, like real time into it, that I wonder if that's what makes it better, right? And if this was a really supported format, maybe it wouldn't be as fun, because maybe it would be more solved. Like right now, it didn't feel that solved. Tons of people had different decks. People were playing with weird cards. Like I played a one of Distraction in my deck, and I remember when I played it, there were people watching, and I could hear them murmuring, like, what the? Who would play that? And Distraction completely blew out my opponent, right? He rolled out a Yoda with 2 awesome upgrades on him. The only 2 dice that are going to do damage. They both roll damage. I say, Distraction. You get rid of 1, and now you only do 3 damage on the turn. Like, that's a huge blowout play that you would never be able to play in Standard. It's just not efficient enough. It's not good enough. And so it's really interesting. It forces you to, Trilogies does, it forces you to make use of cards that are not the most efficient and use them in the most efficient way possible. Much like Draft. And maybe that's what it comes down to, is that people are going to watch this video and say, Tiny, that's what Draft is for. Like, Draft does this already. We don't really need Trilogies also. And that may be the case. I just find that Draft is far, far more random, right? Like, Draft can be really fun when it sort of comes together, but you can have a draft like I did yesterday where I did not see a character, period, the whole game other than Grievous. And it was like, well, yeah, I'm kind of screwed here. So I took Grievous and ran Grievous Anakin, and it was a total debacle. I went 2-1 somehow, some way. Reposition was pretty sweet. 3 copies of that came through. Same type of card, though, right? Like, Reposition, probably not going to see play in Standard because the skill cap on that card is insane. You have to play at the exact right moment, have calculated everything. But, in other words, that's what I really like about Trilogies, is that it forces you to sort of use less effective cards. And now, again, having said that, with Ways of the Force being thrown on top of it, that may not be the case anymore. Trilogies may simply be a watered-down version of Standard. So, this might sound crazy, but I'm wondering if the right approach to Trilogies is make it one set. I know, but I'm pretty sure people are going to be in staunch disagreement with me here. But I really don't think Trilogies is going to be worth much if it's just a slightly worse version of Standard. If people are still able to play all efficient cards, I think it's going to be not very fun. I look at it like Awakenings. Awakenings was people playing some cards where you go, really? I mean, the dude who won the World Championship had several terrible cards in his deck because he felt like he didn't have better choices. But once Spirit of Rebellion came out, it was like, okay, we're fine now. We're all good. Everything's efficient. There are no bad cards in my deck anymore. There are no more subpar cards. And then as more sets came out, it was like, dang, there are no more not awesome cards in my deck. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. What I would love to see is a Trilogies format that is well supported, that is a one set, the newest set. And the reason why that would be so good is because it would give new players such a great on-ramp. Hey, here's all you got to do. You can draft the new set, and then that set you just drafted, that is a format. Just buy more packs of that. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just stick with that. You'll be fine. I think that could work really well. One thing it does do is it puts a ton of pressure on FFG to design really awesome sets that are both standalone and work with other sets, and that just may be too much to expect of them. They did such a good job with Legacies that I look at that and I go, they could do it if they really want, but Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's too much to ask, and maybe that's kind of the whole point, is they're designing these as these 3 set arcs, and that the first one is able to be a little bit more basic, and then the next 2 can kind of get crazier as they're iterating off of the theme put forward in the first one. And if we didn't have that, then it wouldn't be interesting. I don't know. I'm curious to see. I think we should maybe look at Ways of the Force, and does it feel like a standalone set or not? I certainly haven't tried to do that yet. All right, but that's my take. I think Trilogies is a really fun format. I'd like to see it supported more. I am curious to see if Trilogies will basically be ruined by one more set, because in my opinion, what makes Trilogies fun is it's slower, it's slightly less efficient, it gives you a ton of room to think and to out-strategize your opponent. When you roll a bad roll, sometimes it's fine. Sometimes you take whatever rolls out, because it's Trilogies. It's slower. You can get away with that. So there you go. If you want to look at my deck real quick, it's not super interesting. It's Rayla. It's profitable connections, giving you an extra $1. Playing 3-cost weapons. I threw the 2 stun batons in there because I needed a decent 2-drop. I gotta say, stun baton might have been the MVP. I've played them nearly every game. Several times they were amazing. I would roll damage. Zeb would roll out. I'd take one of Zeb's dice. It was amazing. I really liked having several one-ofs like Ataru's Strike, Clash, Distraction. They were all cards that weren't great in all scenarios, but I got to use all of them at least once to pretty good effect. Ataru's Strike was kind of hilarious. I used it for 1, a bonus of 1 to win the game. And that was kind of funny. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. So that's it. That's my take on Trilogies. What do you think? Do you think Trilogies is a fun format? Do you think Trilogy should be limited to 1 set? Do you think Trilogies is going to get watered down as we get farther along? Give me your thoughts below. I'm very curious to see, am I on an island here? Because it really, really feels like I am. It feels like no one cares about Trilogies, and I'm over here beating the drum going, guys, Trilogies is super fun. And you're like, Tiny, you're an idiot. It's not fun. I'll see you next time on Tiny Grabs Games.